is when you fail to see the person, you instead see your stereotype of the person and treat them accordingly. The problem with mental health and addiction for me is that the stigma that's associated with it really ties into who you fundamentally are as a person. And when the stigma is so entrenched in our society, it starts to become something that I've believed about myself. So it is still to this day so hard for me to separate societal stigma from personal shame. And I think that's where it gets dangerous, because it makes people feel like they're not deserving of help.
The stigma around that I've faced on a personal level is this inability to trust. And it goes both ways. For me, the stigma in my life is that my actions and my outward reactions to different life circumstances has been a path of using substances to numb the hurt, the pain, the shame, the guilt. By my actions, I've painted myself into this box. And, the stigma of others is remember when you did this? I just don't trust that you'll be able to actually stay clean. For me, it's wearing what feels to be like a dirty coat of mental health and substance abuse. Society has looked at my outward actions in coping with life and has labeled me as somebody that's not trustworthy, that isn't capable of success, that I come with huge risk.
People don't listen to you, they just look at you. I've dealt with stigma on all different levels. Even now, my life has gotten so much better in the last year. I still have people talk down to me when I go into stores, or just are super, super rude to me, even if I'm extremely nice. And it's been like that my whole life. People categorize people just by the way they look without even actually getting to know them.
I remember the stigma I felt as I'm in a mental health crisis, in psychosis, believing the world's out to kill me, and I'm in handcuffs. I don't trust the RCMP. I don't trust the hospital staff. People looking at me, people staring at me, people seeing me in handcuffs and just assuming worst case, that I'm a criminal, that I'm someone who is a harm to society. Meanwhile, not knowing who Chris was as a person.
If someone gets cancer or breaks their leg or has diabetes, people don't blame the person. And yet with things like substance abuse disorder and mental illness, there is this propensity to look at it from the outside and go, well, you chose that, right? You chose to put that in your body. You choose to not get out of bed, not cook for yourself, not shower, not work. The only way I could really reconcile myself with this was to look at myself as a young girl full of nothing but potential and say, would she ever have wanted this? Would she ever have chosen this for herself? The answer is no.
I remember being a little kid, and unfortunately, though, I thought being bad was cool. I mean, I lived in a complex in Toronto. I thought it was the coolest being around people with weapons and selling drugs. Unfortunately, that fueled my life for the last 29 years. I grew up thinking that stuff was the good thing and the cool thing. And I got into that so young that I never knew any other thing. I put in applications when I was young as a paper boy, pizza shops and fry stands. People just didn't trust me anyways. And they always treated me like I was a little hoodlum. So then I always just acted like one and thought it was cool. Now, almost 30 years later, I've been trying to distance myself from that so much.
I feel like I can't show weakness, because if I show weakness, then I'll be judged for it. Because of all that's happened in my life, that if I'm not crossing every T, dotting every I, being perfect, being flawless, in my perfectionist view of trying to overcome this, I get stuck in this self-defeating trap of being perfect, which is unrealistic. And it would always lead me back out down a path of self-destruction, because I just can't be perfect. I'm a human being. I make mistakes. I mess up.
The biggest myth that I've seen and experienced is that if you're actively addicted to drugs, that you're not then credible, you're not trustworthy, you're not honest, you're not reliable, you're not anything really. And that's a good chunk of the reason why I was a bad person. I was addicted to drugs for a very long time. And the only way that I could get by is if I was a mean person.
I often hear that it's weak-minded individuals who struggle with addiction, and that's not the case. When I'm in a state of mental crisis, or when I'm in a place where I've relapsed, it hurts my heart, and that just fuels continued use, and the snowball effect happens. A myth that I tell myself is that I'm worthless and I'm not worthy to have a future, which is a lie. I'm very capable. I'm very skilled. I'm talented. I'm lovable. I'm a life worth saving.
There's a lot of good people, and they're not just drug addicts. They're not just homeless. They're mothers, daughters, sisters, brothers, fathers, and they all have stories too.